Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Bhasmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomabda Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaya Namaha Tava Vedanta Sedanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Satiguru Pranatosh Maham Om Shanti 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 Om. Okay. Do we have any questions? We covered last week the causal body, which is a very, very subject. And I have to confess, I was not doing very well last week. I had just arrived late, very late in the night from Spain. And I was still a little bit foggy and very tamazic. So can we say something about the causal body, or do you have any questions about causal body? Or shall we move on?
I've just got a quick one. Touching on what you said just now, you said you were feeling tamasic and, and then, when you feel like that and then the causal body's kind of doing its thing, is it impossible to be, to have a sense of freedom in that state? Are you going to just end up suffering like that? You're tamasic and then the causal body's, running the show.
Yeah. The feel tamasic, it means that your mind is not as bright, you don't have as much inspiration, your body, you're a little bit down mentally and physically, you're lazy, you're tired, tired. You're not as brilliant. But there is, I have had this experience of going and in a satsang or a class tamasic, and then by those energies, they just wake up. Is my mic working? Because I see you trying to hear what I'm saying.
No, I can hear you fine.
Okay. So I had the experience of beginning tamasic, and especially doing those 3-week seminars in India, and sometimes I was ill and very low energy, and I would begin like that, and somehow when we start getting our minds into this scriptural knowledge, Tattva start being cultivated, it starts being converted. Some of those tamas and the tiredness start transforming themselves into Tattva. So anyhow, I never stopped myself from going into a webinar or a talk or a conversation. If I'm tamasic, if the conversation is about the self and Vedanta, because this very subject matter and this conversation, it somehow stimulates and cultivates and develops sattva. And then by the time we finish the conversation, I feel much more bright, much more elevated, and much more clear and happy and satisfied. It doesn't matter. It's just that once, if the mind is more clear, sattvic, it's more clear, and you get more inspiration and creativity and so on in your exposition of the teachings. So what is your question? If there is anything we can do about those 3 energies, because these 3 energies, they just move on their own accord, their proportions, our mind, okay? Also body counts the subtle body and the physical body, okay? So if our mind is tamasic and our body is tamasic, so we're going to experience that. And that book that Truth showed us, the 3 energies, the gunas,
yes,
presents, different ways to manage those 3 energies, by managing your goals, your values, and your lifestyle, and by observing the way those tendencies, they begin operating, they coming from the unconscious mind, they begin in your mind, and then you can redirect those energies, and so to speak, you can say, you can call the required energy at a specific time. Or if you're in a situation that you need rajas, so you just call forth the rajas, not necessarily by drink 2 or 3 shots of espresso caffeine, but you by other means you can manage your energy and force exactly the energy that is required for the karmic situation you find yourself in. I did not understand very well your question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, well, I think it was just more in relation to, when you're in that state, and it kind of feels a bit sort of hellish, because
Yeah.
you kind of feel like you're trying to, either you're trying to find something outside, oh, I need another coffee, or I need to do this, I need to do that, and it feels, to me, sometimes it feels like a bit of a game that you've got to sort of, try to readjust those energies.
Yeah.
And I can do certain things, if I can, as you say, drink a cup of coffee, maybe have a glass of water, take a supplement or something, and then my mind can feel a bit brighter. But then it kind of feels like, I don't know, then you're sort of associating yourself with the body more, and it's
Yeah, it's not the best way to manage the gunas, to take in certain substance, which is going to short term stimulate the body, or
yeah.
or short term wash away, or bring down excessive rajas and rajas,
Mm-hmm.
tamas again. I'm saying this is the other sign. When I used to run my restaurant, there was so much activity. It was almost unhuman to run the restaurant and jumping from one table to another, and making
Yeah.
sure that everybody was happy, and selling them good wines or whatsoever wines they want. And at certain point in the evening, my mind was so exhausted. I was so stressed out that I need to drink something which is tamas, to
Yeah.
to reduce the discomfort.
Yeah.
Let me just check one thing to make sure. Yeah, record. To reduce the discomfort of Rajaguna, Rajas.
Yeah.
It makes the body mind very, very uncomfortable. It can be very painful to be driven by excess mental and physical activity, a lot of desires, a lot of thoughts, a lot of actions. It's
Yeah.
very, very, very uncomfortable, painful.
Yes.
You can drink something that's going to reduce, or it's going to suppress rajas, or in other words, it's going to convert rajas into tamas, and then you feel better, because tamas, although it's the worst possible condition for the jiva, it's less painful than rajas. Okay, so you don't really suffer as much when you are tamasic. You are just like getting closer to be like a plant or a vegetable. You're just like, you're just very depressed, and then you are flat, you are dull, you experience, this kind of
Yeah.
how you say that words, procrastination, and you just, oh no, tomorrow, mañana, and this and that, and then you turn the TV, and then let's have another beer. Some people like, let's smoke a joint or whatever, and then you see you're flat there, but you don't suffer as much as if your mind would be extremely rajasic. So
Yeah.
the advantage of the rajas is that rajas is it, although it's painful, it provides us with the energy required to convert rajas into sattva. Okay, and tamas, with this extremely tamasic condition, flat condition, apathic, dull. We don't have the physical and mental energy to implement change, to implement, conversion. You can never transform tamas directly into sattva. The proper channel is like you go from tamas to rajas and then from rajas to sattva. No? So therefore, it's better to be rajasic, but it's also more painful. Okay. So when we are too rajasic or too tamasic, so we are not really in the best shape. We are not really fit for spiritual growth, So it's said that if our mind is governed or conditioned or influenced for a dominance of sattva, of tamas, so that is conducive to spiritual decline, because the person that is dull and flat and depressed, okay, procrastinate all the time, the person in that condition is a person that not only does not grow spiritually, but it declines spiritually. It moves more and more to the vegetable kingdom. You become more and more like a plant, a vegetable. You are just like, But if you are more rajasic, it's said that it's not the best condition because it's not conducive to spiritual development, spiritual refinement, and so on. But at least you don't decline. You continue running your program, trying to resolve your human situation, your spiritual life or your jiva life. You're trying to resolve it in India, running in the rat race, running for and running to avoid certain things. So you are doing all of that, and by doing that, you do not really grow, but you don't decline. And we could almost say that it is conducive to a certain development, because only when we exhaust ourselves trying to run to gain or run to avoid things, as I mean to resolve our condition as a human being, only when we get totally exhausted, we start, connecting the dots and beginning to understand there must be another way out of this condition called human suffering, this boredom of life, this frustration of never feeling fulfilled by the meaning of gaining or avoiding. So running for things is better than sit in your couch home and doing nothing and drinking beers and smoke joints and watching TV and all of that, and then tricking the system, good food, getting food stamps so that you don't work, you just live from the social programs of your country. You're a sucker. You are not a contributor. You are far from being a karma yogi or anything like that. And you are far from being somebody creative that begins a business and create positions to other people. You are not interested in spirituality, but you are contributing to society to a certain degree. You are dynamic, you are creative, and so on. So it's called a condition that you remain more or less stagnated spiritually, but you are creating the base from where you can move into spiritual development, because it comes a point that the person understands that, there's nothing I can do here in terms of physical, material, financial, economic success that's going to resolve this problem. I still remain with this nagging feeling that, I'm still empty, I'm still lacking, I'm still unsatisfied, and so on. So then going for things like Rajasic people do is painful, but it's a much better condition, that brings us closer to the understanding that that there must be another way to solve this human problem.
Yeah. And as has been said, you need to sort of put the work in to sort of get the results. Otherwise, it's not going to just it's not going to fall into your lap.
Yeah, we need to do the work, and our work begin by cultivating. Cultivating is not easy. Cultivating, developing, and maintaining a proper environment. What is this environment I'm talking about? I talk about cultivating, developing, and maintaining a mind, body-mind, which is dominated by more and more proportion of sattva guna. Tattva guna is going to give you focus and mental clarity and the one-pointedness and the ability to see things as they are, and the ability to connect the dots and understand that there is no solution, in media, that the objects are fundamentally value neutral and so on. So all these connections, all these understandings that they almost seem to be intuitive. For example, Stephen. So when I was young, I was living in Brazil, and I got a very good position as a business, or they call sales engineer. But I was selling equipment to the offshore industry, the oil offshore industries, in Brazil, Petrobras being the main client. So I was making good money, because there is almost more money in sales than in other, usually, in other departments, these corporations. So I was making good money. I had a very good position that a lot of my friends, my colleagues from the college were envy of my position, But somehow there was something inside myself that I could not understand, but I was not satisfied with my life. So I literally blew my career to the extent that I could not understand what I was doing. I was feeling so crazy. I was feeling guilt. I was making my parents, feeling like, oh my God, he's totally gone. He's great. How he could blow it. Now he has a baby, he has a wife, and he's just blowing everything. And he does not want any of that. And we have made so much of an effort to help him to get this college degree. So everybody was disappointed with me, and I was disappointed with me as well. But there was a power, force inside myself that was telling me, no, I don't want anything that, this society has to offer. I don't enjoy these values. I see what people are going for. They're going for power, fame, and they are able to do anything to get to their goals. They are going to hurt people. They are going to do the most stupid, unfair, unjust things. I was seeing how the corporation was working. Everything they were doing, it was just profit-oriented, and they were not taking consideration other people, other small companies. It was absurd. And my eyes were so open. I said, I cannot leave this thing. And I became a spiritual hippie for the of my parents, you understand? So how that took place, where did that come from? So the only explanation we have, once I got in contact with the scriptures, is that I had already a spiritual vasana from previous life, that I came this vasana.
You've gone dead there.
Yeah, I'm not. He's frozen for me as well. Oh,
Okay.
Lindo, you just just locked up for about 30 seconds.
Yeah. Okay, so I was saying I could not really understanding why I was doing all of that, creating so much pain and disappointment to myself and others, but I couldn't help. And the only explanation that we have, and especially since I got to know the scriptures, the Vedic culture, is that I was born with this spiritual vasana that very few people are born with, And I was born, but at the same time, I was born with a need to prove something to myself and others. And then I found myself in that kind of ambient environment, and I was split from the beginning. I was divided And when I begin getting really success, I just say, no, I don't want it, you know. So this vasana, this desire, né, for spiritual development and growth is something that not everybody has, you know. And, but that's the beginning. That's where we start, you know, transforming our lives and working, organizing our lifestyle, our way of life in a way that our way of life is in harmony, you know, is conformed to my goal, and it's designed my character, and my character is redesigned my way of life, and my way of life is again designed define my goal. No, it all comes into place, you know, like together, you know.
Yeah, it's sort of trying to fit it together, get all the pieces in the right place.
I don't know if I moved away from your question. You tell me.
No, that makes all kind of
blends together.
You know, I mean, it's a fine balance sometimes, but I suppose my you know, I suppose it's getting at the moment, you know, I feel like I'm kind of on the seesaw. Like sometimes I'm in, and then sometimes I'm out, and it's like I want to be, you know, it's when you kind of fall when you're not when I'm not able to discriminate, and you know, it's painful. It gets, you know, but you know, it's just maintaining those energies, really.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Truth.
Well, for me, when you know, basically, Stephen, what you're saying, when you have those emotions or situations coming up that are very either rajasic or tasmasic, which are really painful to the jiva, if you're identifying with jiva. And the thing is, these forces are always going to come up regardless of what your spiritual development is. But the truth of the matter is, when you study Advaita Vedanta, you come to the understanding that you are not those energies, you know, because normally we identify with those energies as being us. But when you start understanding, you know, that your consciousness, witnessing the effects, you can disengage from the profound suffering that comes with the identification of those things. That doesn't mean they're going to totally go away, but when you understand, you just say, well, I'm consciousness observing these, and it's not really, it's an apparent reality. It's not real, as we come to understand through Advaita Vedanta. And I think this kind of, you know, forces of the gunas are always going to be with us while we have a physical body. I don't know, when we drop our body, you know, I don't know, this is like, you know, when we drop our body, are these forces are still in play? I don't know.
They remain there. So there is one point which is important here, Trudy. I mean, you said exactly what I was going to say in connection to what Steve just shared. You know, we are moved, we are governed by these three energies, and these three energies, they fundamentally, you know, they sit in the causal body, in our unconscious mind. Okay, in other words, those are our dispositions, our tendencies, our propensities. Okay, our vasanas, not to use the technical term. So these vasanas, these tendencies, these dispositions or propensities, and they are there, and they manifest as a thought feeling again and again in our conscious mind, in our subtle body. Okay, so we through this saying, like on the conscious level, Vedanta presents us with the most fundamental tool to allow it, which allows us to discriminate the self from the not self. And this tool, it can help us as well to alleviate the pain. Every time that there is a mental, emotional, painful situation, we can discriminate this conscious subject principle from this object of experience. Okay? So if we do the discrimination only when we have an unfavorable, unpleasant experience, and then we just say, okay, I don't want to identify with painful experience. But then when comes a very, very good, pleasant, favorable situation, I identify with it and I say, oh, I want to enjoy the pleasures of my punya karma, what I like, So discrimination is to discriminate, is to negate both. It negates everything that I like and negate what I don't like. And this is the radical proposition of Vedanta, is to discriminate anything as mithya, as not real, okay? Which is easier said than done. So if this discrimination, I mean, just to open a parenthesis here, it's easier. I mean, everybody in the world lives by trying to reject. Now, karma manifests as our life circumstance. We reject what we don't like, okay, and we accept what we like. When it comes, we say, "Oh, this is a blessing. This is my punya. It's blessing." Okay. When comes an unfavorable circumstance, if I'm not religious, I'm going to reject and say, "No, there is something wrong." I'm going to blame something, blame the government, blame the church, my parents. I'm going to reject and kick and scream because I don't want what I don't want. If I am religious or if I'm a karma yoga, I may take it as God's will, okay? So when it's unfavorable circumstance, we as karma yoga, we say, okay, Lord, it's God's will, it's Ishwara's will, I take it as prasad, okay? So the ability to accept both, it's very important. And this is, we are entering the waters of karma yoga. The ability to accept both the favorable circumstance and the unfavorable circumstance. The other way, which is a more advanced way, what Trudy was pointing out too, is to reject everything, to reject the favorable and the unfavorable. To every time life brings something that you like, you reject, okay? And every time life brings something that you like, you reject as well. It's total dispassion, total equanimity, Is you reject the punya and papa as not real. It requires a very, very kind of spiritual disposition. It's more like a sannyasa disposition, a total renunciation. I renounce to the good pleasures of life and I renounce the painful experience of life. I don't go into life to live this pleasure and pains, this up and down. I renounce both, okay? It's hard to renounce both because if you renounce what you don't like, you need to renounce what you like. So it means to say you have to sacrifice those beautiful, joyful experiences of life. On the other hand, if you accept only what you like and you reject what you don't like, you are having trouble. Okay, so the only way is to be able, with this karma yoga attitude, to accept both. And in order for us to accept both, we need to understand the big picture of mithya, understand this karmic laws, and understanding that everything that manifests to us as my prarabdha karma serves the purpose, of exalting some karma, serves the purpose, of balancing my karmic account in a certain way, because after all, Ishwara is the facilitator. There is something here that is causing a pain and discomfort that I did not like. It's how you say, choiceless and circumstance or situation or results of actions that I have no other option, but I take it, okay? And I don't reject it. I don't send it again to the mittente, we say in Italian language, to the one who sent it, to the sender, Ishwara. So the ability to accept both is very, very important stage in our spiritual development. We call the Karma Yogi spirit, you know, and the ability to reject both is this very dispassionate, very, very advanced state as a sannyasa that says, no, everything I reject as not real, okay, which requires a certain spiritual maturity. So many times when we have experience that are unpleasant, it's difficult, like emotional suffering, you know, mental disturbance and agitations, karmic conflicts with other peoples in other environments and situations and companies and colleagues. So every time we have this experience that are disturbing the mind, okay, we can try and discriminate it. This is not real because it's an experience appearing to me, and I am Satya. I am the subject principle, conscious principle behind the mind, you know, pervading the mind, shining the mind. I am this subject conscious principle, okay, that I am free from all any kind of experience, okay. We can try to do this such a media discrimination, this subject discrimination, you know, we can try it. Keep in mind that when the mind is disturbed by, you know, due to some unfavorable, choiceless kinds of circumstances or situations, you know, or results, that mind which is disturbed, it loses its ability, its faculty to do this very, very refined, very, very subtle discrimination between satya and mithya. It becomes more difficult. It's important we know that, Stephen, so that we don't feel like self-defeated, to say like, oh God, you know, oh, I'm a failure. No, when the mind is not really very, very refined and subtle and discriminative, contemplative and alert and clear, to discriminate when the mind is disturbed, agitated, stressed or depressed, okay? In those conditions, the mind is not fit to do this satya mithya discrimination. Okay, so I'm exposing this because a lot of the people who want to take a shortcut, when their minds are clear, they say, doesn't matter, I got it. I don't need to go into karma yoga. I don't need to become a karma yogi, because anything that happens to me, all I have to do is to discriminate the subject from the object, and I am the free subject conscious principle. End of the story, okay? But the fact is that when the mind is going through a lot of rajasic or tamasic emotional mental experience, you know, the mind loses its ability to do this discrimination, you know. So it becomes very difficult, almost impossible. And then what is the other option? The other option is to become a karma yogi. And by doing so, we're going to begin developing the attitude based on the understanding of Bhagavad Gita and the entire teaching covering Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga in the Gita. By understanding that, we develop the ability to accept both, accept what is pleasant and unpleasant, accept what I want, accept what I don't want, okay? We have two options. We either accept both or we reject both. Rejecting both requires a very, very, very more advanced and clear and refined and sharp mind, okay? With a lot of discriminating faculty. So, and then it's easier to accept both. It's easier to develop this understanding that allows us to accept both. If we really understand that life is not under our control, that there is an infinity of factors, you know, influence or contributing to what life is going to bring to us now, on the macrocosmic level, on the collective level, universal level of the planet, or in the cosmic level. There's so much going on that we don't know. There are many levels of factors that we don't even have an idea, but they are influenced the results of my actions, my prarabdha karma. So when we really assimilate karma yoga, and then, and only then, we come to the point of developing cultivating, develop the ability of accepting both, And this ability to accept both, it promotes, it produces very rapidly this purification or refinement of mind. You understand? This ability of accepting both, because I understood the game, I understood the system, understood the relationship here, understood the values of objects, I understood the relationship between jiva and all other objects. Okay, I understood that life is a zero-sum game. So I understood so many things about these psychological and karmic laws that now, based on this knowledge, understanding, I begin accepting both favorable and unfavorable, pleasant and painful circumstances, And this is the path of the karma yoga, which is conducive to a refined mind that has the ability to later on, in due time, discriminate satya and mithya on a moment-to-moment basis. Why? Because the mind is no longer often disturbed, depressed, or stressed by rajas and tamas. The mind is more stable. It has developed, more sattva, and then it's more clarity. There is more focus. There is more understanding, and the mind can more, in its subtlety, it can discriminate what is real and not real, and again it recomposes itself and say, I am satya. And that is the sadhana that Trudy was referring to in what she was saying.
Yeah. I think what's happened this week, I think I've had a lot on, and I haven't been able to sort of keep up. And then you're kind of getting involved in situations, and you're not in the moment. You start having to sort of think over things you said, and you're not sure what the outcome is and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think, as you say, you just need to surrender it all, and then it sort of takes the effort out of it.
Yeah, there is a pressure. I hear you. I think I heard that from you already before, if I'm not wrong. There are things being played here. One is like life brings us circumstance, situations, ups and downs, and some shocking events, some crises, and some time of a lot of activity and agitation. And our mind is going to fluctuate. Just as an example, it's now since a few days that we are moving into a new house. So you most probably, you remember when you have to do a move, you have to take all your things, and then you have to organize a time frame, a schedule. We're going to start doing this and this. And if you're alone, it may be intense, but it's not as stressful if you have another person with you with one's own idea. No, let's do this first. Let's do this. Let's do that. No.
Yeah.
So only a small little thing like moving from one house to another. A source of mental modification. You understand?
Yeah.
Before I was here enjoying and living my life and reading my things, writing my stuff, and now I have to be back and forth and going here and dealing with my beloved wife, because wherever there are two, there's potential for disagreement, So agreements are there because there are two. It's since a while that I want to move from here and going to Spain or Portugal. And since a while I have been negotiating with my wife, and my wife has made no concession and say, no, I'm going to stay here. you better stay here, and so on. So there are two. There is room for disagreement, and you have to find workability and so on. And all of that somehow it modifies the mind. Agitates the mind sometimes. So we cannot avoid these mental modifications that occur, based on what's going on in your field, in your own environment, in your life circumstances, situation. But when you see that your mind modifying, that if I see that I get more irritable here and there and so on, I don't make a big deal. You know what I mean? So if I would make a big deal because I got irritable with my wife, okay, and then I would have a double problem. First, the problem that I got irritated with her, and second, the problem that I don't accept the fact that I was irritated with her. You understand?
Yeah.
Now, we just leave things as they are, because I hear you saying that you don't accept suffering and pain and discomfort and disturbance, and so just leave it as they are, And as a body mind, even not just as consciousness, as a jiva, you can say, hey, I understood here. I have no control of the events. I'm still learning to organize my life, to establish and align my life, with my goal, developing a style of life, a lifestyle, a way of life that is in harmony with my values and my goals. And I want my personality to follow and to be transformed. We are doing this work, okay? And but not every time things are easy. Not every time things are working good for us. We go like that. Okay? And when we go south, we need to take that without making any problem about that. You understand? You just, okay, so there was some situation, some mistake, there was some disturbance, there was some irritation, there was this, there was that, and immediately you recompose yourself. Immediately, okay. Why? Because you are not adding a second layer of problem. Because one thing is to react to life. Life is some stuff, and you react. And this is normal, as long as you don't react about the reaction. If you add a reaction to the original reaction, you understand? And then certain complexities that are conducive to real psychological problems. Understand that, Stephen?
Yeah. I think it makes sense, because you just it's all kind of out of your control. So there's no point fighting it too much.
Yeah, we have a limit control. We have a control by the way we respond to this continuous flow, cycle of stimulus response, stimuli response, stimulus response. But we don't have control over our state of mind. Our state of mind may be in certain conditions that our response will not be very timely and appropriate. Okay, so and then we have to be nice with ourselves for two reasons. First, because I myself am not the body mind, and this we need to keep in mind. And second, because I, the jiva, I'm doing my best. You understand? I'm one factor among so many other factors, and my physical mental condition is subject to so many variables in the field. I'm one of the factors. My willpower, my effort is one of my skill to respond, my ability to respond, my ability to try to keep and maintain a clear mind. So all of that we can put in the bulk, in the bag of my personal effort, my personal determination. So I have a certain contributing factor here, but I don't have control over so many other contributing factors. And then as a jiva, I know I'm doing my best. Mistakes happen, and they continue happening. and they happen also for the great enlightened beings. Okay, so mistakes are possible and they happen, and they, I mean, if we want to call it mistakes, understand? So we should never beat ourselves up. First, because we are the self and we don't do anything. Second, as a jiva, we are doing our best. I'm trying to cultivate and maintain a sattvic mind. I'm trying to become a karma yoga in a way that I can accept both what I want and what I don't want with a certain spirit. And then, and I'm just following Dharma. I'm coming to the class of Vedanta. I'm dedicating more and more time. Okay. And I know that life is what it is. It's not an ocean of rose. No, it's not a. It requires a lot of development, a lot of effort, a lot of purification. I mean, to live a happy life requires a lot of talent, wisdom. Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need to suffer for due to our limitations. So just accept our limitations as a jiva and the fluctuations of our mental conditions as they are. Okay, and then everything is good. You just recompose yourself again and again. First, because you're the self, you don't change, you don't do any action. Second, because as a jiva, again repeating myself, I'm doing the best I can. Okay, I'm a householder. I have a wife, maybe children, I don't know, and I have to do everything. And on top of everything, I want self-knowledge and moksha. I say, wow, you are very ambitious, Stephen. You want all that plus moksha, huh? He said, okay, let's go for it, okay?
Yeah. I got. Yeah, I mean, I'm in London. I'm in the rat race here. It's great, to some extent. 4 children.
4 children.
Yeah, busy. Anyway, enough of me. But thank you. No,
Okay.
that's. I think. As you just say, just got to let go of it and just take what comes, and it's much easier that way.
Yeah, and I want to, as soon as we complete this text of the Tattva Bodha, which is a presentation of all the fundamental topics of Vedanta, the most fundamental.
Yes.
I mean, it presents like ta. We don't go very deeply in any one of those. As soon as we finish that, my idea is to begin with Bhagavad Gita, if we have a group. Because I find the Gita the best possible scripture or text to start. You understand?
Okay.
It's a complex. It has Jnana Yoga. It has Karma Yoga. It's very attractive because it's a Purana. It comes as a story. It makes it attractive. So that's what I have in mind. If we keep having a group.
Good. Oh, just being invaded by a child. 1 second.
Okay, shall we venture a little farther in the Tattva Bodha, going into the five sheaths?
Sure.
Yes, I'm ready.
Good.
Copy here.
So, what are the 5 sheaths? They are also known as the 5 koshas. There is a background noise. Is that you or Steve? Or
Sorry.
I don't believe it's me.
Okay. So the five sheaths are also known as the five koshas. They are another way of seeing the three bodies. It's another way to break down those three bodies, the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body. Now, before we looked into the three bodies, and the purpose of understanding and define the three bodies was to come to a determination, to assert in the end the fact that the self cannot be either ones of those three bodies. No, it cannot be any of those three bodies. Now we're gonna look into discriminate the self from the five sheaths, the five quotients. It's another way to subdivide these different levels of human experience, okay? Different layers of existence, of beingness for the self as a jiva, okay? So they are another way of viewing the three bodies. They are the food sheaths, yeah, also known as the food body, the prana sheath, which is the vital air or the physiological systems, the mind sheath, intellect, and the bliss sheath. Okay? So we have the bliss sheath, the intellect, the mind going from the up level, up part of our chart. We have the bliss, the causal body, we have the intellect, we have the mind, we have the pranas that usually shows in between our gross body and the subtle body. We have the pranas, and then we have the food body, which is the gross body or the physical body. These five layers of experience or five layers of being are called sheaths. In Sanskrit, it's called sheaths. I have trouble with this name. I often prefer to call koshas. So these five koshas are called sheaths in Sanskrit because each one fits in the next one like a sword in a scabbard. You know this word? You both know this word, scabbard?
Sword holder.
Yes, thank you. The Americans, they always have an easier way to describe things. A sword holder. In England, I think they tend to call it a scabbard, huh?
Yeah, that's an old traditional word.
Old English, yeah.
Technical, it's a technical term.
Yeah, okay. So they are called sheaths because it holds the same way we have the cover that holds the sword. So it appears as if these sheaths, these covers, are going to cover the self. So it's almost as if the self is covered by this sword cover, okay? The sheaths, this kosha, okay? Only the densest, the grossest of the bodies, the food body, is made of matter, as we know. The other four koshas or sheaths are energy states. They are invisible to our physical eyes. So we are analyzing these different aspects of our sense of existence as a experience knowing entity called the jiva, and we say that only the gross physical body is made out of matter, physical matter, which is visible to our physical eyes. So the gross, the food body is made out of matter. The other four sheaths, the other four koshas are made out of subtle matter or energy, and they are not visible to our physical eyes. Okay? We can easily sense the experience and the experience then within us when we pay close attention. What it means? It means that although we cannot really see with our eyes, with our sense, we cannot see the vital air or the physiological systems, the pranas. We don't see them. Although we cannot really see the mind because it's invisible kind of energy, okay? Although we cannot see the intellect, although we cannot see the Ananda Maya Kosha, which is bliss, it's the causal body. We don't see them, but we know of their existence. We can really sense their presence within us when we really analyze our experience, when we pay attention and we analyze our experience following the logic presented by the scriptural knowledge of the Upanishads or Vedantic knowledge. Okay? So this section of the text offers us an alternate way to look at the three bodies and its different levels of experience. They are present as the five koshas or five sheaths. Okay? So this session, the session of divine, our human experience in five different levels. Okay? They give a different perspective, and the different is an alternative way of looking at the three bodies. Okay, it is always seen the three bodies, but we are going to subdivide it differently. Also, the food sheet is the gross body, is the physical body. No? So it's very simple. There is no difference. There is no other parts that we left out from the analysis as the body, as the physical, the subtle, and the causal body. So the food sheet is the physical gross body, and it's often referred as food. So the food sheet, the food body. Why we refer it as food sheet, we're going to see in a moment. But the subtle body, on the other hand, is subdivided in three levels of experience, okay, or three layers of being, three layers of experience. The subtle body is subdivided into the vital air sheaths, okay, our physiological functions, is subdivided as the mind, that aspect of our subtle body that feels, that questions, that emotes and so on. It's subdivided and thinks, the mind, and then the intellect, okay? So the subtle body appears as three different functions, and interestingly enough, one of the functions is the physiological functions, is the pranas, is the vital airs, our physiological functions. They appear in this way, this presentation, this alternative way to look on our experience. They appear, the pranas, they appear as within the subtle body. So the vital air, the mind, and the intellect sheaths. So what it means? It means that the subtle body now appears as the vital air sheaths, the mind sheaths, and the intellect sheaths. Okay? So the bliss sheaths is the causal body. So here we don't have much to say because it is the causal body, as we have analyzed before. But now we're going to analyze the causal body from a different angle. We call it blissful. We call it the sheaths, the kosha, the aspect of our human experience from where the bliss comes from, okay, from where we experience bliss. It's a different angle of analyzing the causal body. And much more we're going to say about this source of bliss called the bliss sheaths. They are referred to as sheaths because they seem to cover the self, as I said before. But as we know, we advanced students of Vedanta, the self is never covered by anything because the self pervades anything in the manifest. There is no matter or energy that can conceal or cover the self, because the self is that which pervades everything. But since the self cannot actually be covered, it's more appropriate to think of the sheaths as universal errors, universal mistakes. Why it's universal? Because it's Maya. Maya tricks all beings, you know, by its power, it tricks everybody. So it appears as a universal misapprehension of the nature of the I. So the I appears as one of those 5 levels of human experience, or 5 layers of being. Okay? So this is due to a mistake produced by Maya. This is a universal, beginningless misapprehension of the nature of the I. In other words, each one of these sheaths is a way by which nearly everyone takes the self, the I, to be the not self. Takes the real I to be the apparent I. Okay? So these 5 koshas, these 5 apparent veiling, apparent covers, apparent powers that conceal the nature of reality, these apparent upadis, you know, this we can look from upadis, they're going to conceal and going to make us to error our perception, our apprehension of the nature of the I. Okay? And we're going to take the self to be the not self, the real I to be the apparent I. In other words, it's going to take the self to be its experience as a jiva. Well, it's more to the point. It's going to take the self, this I that we are, to get confused and identified as its experiences. For instance, when we think I am the body, when I think I am fat, oh, I am very skinny, I have to put on weight. I need to put on weight. I bought a new scale because I lost some weight since I got sick last year with Lyme. So I lost some weight. And then I got into this idea, oh my God, I have to gain weight. So I bought a scale, Stephen. And then almost every day I wait because my doctor told me, you cannot lose any more weight. Okay? You see the ignorance there? The I got confused with the body, with the food sheet. You know, I think I am in my gross food sheet. And now I have to have a scale because I think I am the body and I am skinny. I'm too skinny. Okay? This is ignorance in operation. So when I think I am skinny, I'm mistaking the I, the self, to be the food sheet. Okay? Those mistakes, they just go by like naturally. We don't even know sometimes, you know, we are just like, oh, I mean, of course, the yoni, when it's firm in this knowledge, it knows that it's only the body, it knows that the body needs to be in good shape so that the mind is also in good shape so that we can live a happy life, okay? And exhaust our karmas and say goodbye in peace without attachment and agony and anxiety or anything when our time comes. So I need to take care of the body, and it's highly recommended that we take care of the body. But if our identification with the body is based on total ignorance, because I have never come to the scriptural knowledge presented by Ishwara, and then I will really feel, oh my God, I'm too fat. Oh, I'm too skinny. I need a scale. And so on. So it means to say that I, the self, got confused and identified with the not self. I identified with my food body, the food sheath, the food quotient. For example, when I say I am hot, you know, I am also getting confused with the pranas, with my physiological system. Okay? So all this physiologic system is taking care of my temperature, digestion, circulation, and so on. And if I say, oh, I am hot, you know, I am constipated, immediately I'm taking my physiological system to be the I. I identified with a certain level of experience, okay? I got confused. If I say I am hot, I'm confused the I with the vital air sheaths, okay? When I say I feel sad, I'm confusing the I, the limitless, free, untouched, unconcerned, no, unmodified. I'm confusing the I with the mind, the emotions, and the thoughts that emerge and subside in the scope of my conscious awareness. Okay, so if I identify with the mind, I'm reducing myself to become the mind. So I'm identify with the mind sheets. Okay, and we experience that very, very often when we say I feel sad, I feel confused, and so on. When I say I understand and I'm choosing, I'm discriminating, I'm determining, I'm confusing the I, the limitless, free, ever present I'm confusing with my intellectual faculty of discerning and determining. Okay? So that's a big one. A big one is to undo this identification with the subtle intellect, our supreme judge, that aspect, that function of our subtle body that really has the power to clearly understand and decide, discriminate, and determine if our subtle body is geometrically balanced, properly balanced, of course. So when I say I understood, I understand, I choose, and I discriminate, I'm fusing the I with the intellect. And when I'm when I'm doing things and I say, "Oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm getting it, I'm finishing to watch the video," I'm confusing the I, the limitless, actionless self. I'm confusing with the ego, the doer, for example. You know, when I say I'm peaceful, I'm blissful, I'm content, I'm totally satisfied. Okay, I'm enjoying this incredible experience of love and peace and satisfaction. I'm confusing the limitless self, I'm confusing myself with a very beautiful experience. Yeah? I'm confusing myself with the bliss sheaths, which is very, very tempting, very hard not to identify with that level of human experience, with that sheaths called Anandamaya Kosha or the bliss sheaths. Each time these mistaken thoughts occur, the sheath can be discriminated from the self in the same way we discriminate the self from the three bodies. So every time we get confused with these different levels of our human experience, okay, from the standpoint of the food body to the pranas, to the mind, to the intellect, and to the bliss, happiness, peace, love, and satisfaction, we can say, not this, not this, not. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not my physiological functions. None of this is me, and I'm not even my beautiful and sharp and clear intellect, and I'm neither my blissful experience of love, silence, peace, and clarity of mind. So we need to discriminate every time that these thoughts come. No? First, the sheaths are unconscious. So we are going to try to discriminate the self from all the koshas by the bulk, so to speak. Okay? We're going to put all the koshas, all the sheaths in one bucket, and we're going to discriminate the self from all of them. And then we say, first, the sheaths are unconscious. They are always changing. They are ever-changing objects. Okay? And they are not always present. Okay? So the sheaths are unconscious. They are ever-changing objects. They are not always present. So they cannot be the subject, conscious, limitless principle, which is unchanging and all always present, the self, the I, the real, the only reality. So the sheaths, and we know that the sheaths are a matter because the sheaths, they all exist, below the line of Maya. When we bring into, well, let me bring this. Can you see the chart?
Yes.
Okay. So below this line here, okay, there is awareness, self-existence. Now we call sometimes Brahman or the unmanifest self. Okay. So Maya did not come into operation. Therefore, there is just the fullness of the self, one without a second. Okay, there is no duality. The fundamental duality, subject-object, did not come into play. There is only awareness. So it's all good. But below the line of Maya, everything from this line downwards is matter. Okay? The only difference is that down here, below the line called pranas, where the pranas are, okay, physiological systems, below that line, okay, we have what we call our physical, material body. They are physical to our physical eyes. So our physical eyes have the power, the ability to capture our physical body. Therefore, we call it the physical body, the gross body. And in this analysis of the five koshas, we call the food body, the food sheaths. Okay? So everything here that occurs below this line is matter and energy. So before we said that only the physical body is made out of physical gross matter, which is visible to our sight. Okay, but everything in here is matter. It's prakriti. Okay, so all this matter, it appears as gross matter, subtle matter, which is the subtle body, and super subtle matter, which is the causal body. Okay. So, but it's all matter. That's what it's saying here. First, the sheaths are unconscious, ever-changing objects, so they cannot be conscious. They unchanging self. The food body change from moment to moment according to many factors, especially on what you eat. Just a moment. I brought this shot because I want to elaborate something more. First, the sheaths are unconscious, ever-changing object. So they cannot be conscious and changing self. Yeah. So everything here, all these five levels, no? The gross, the pranas, the mind, the intellect, all of this is inert matter. It's fundamentally, they are not conscious. They say, oh my God, but I thought the subtle body was a conscious principle. I thought the causal body was conscious. No, the causal body is not self-conscious. The causal body is a reflector of consciousness, okay? The causal body, analogically, metaphorically, is compared to the moon shining, reflecting the original sunlight from our sun, which is the self. The same way the subtle body reflects the self, but all of this is made out of prakriti. It's matter. It's all unconscious matter. There is no consciousness here, and the consciousness that we can infer by the thoughts and feelings we experience here, we can infer consciousness by the thoughts, emotions, feelings, and notions and actions we do here. We can infer this consciousness, but this consciousness is bored by consciousness itself. The same way the physical body, we can infer consciousness existence here because it is animated and it acts. It's constantly acts, responding, okay, to the field. So we can infer that there is a consciousness, okay, in all of these three levels, the three bodies, or in other words, in all of these 5 levels, okay, the food sheaths, the vital air sheaths, the mental sheaths, the intellectual, and the bliss sheaths. All of this is inert matter. It's not really conscious. It's made conscious by consciousness alone. First, the sheaths are unconscious. Okay, the food body change from moment to moment according to many factors, especially on what we eat. So why we call it the food body? Because I mean, if we stop eating, for example, if we stop taking food, the body disappears. No, we have no doubt about that. Without taking the food, the body goes. The body is nothing but reprocessed food. Okay, we processing food and turning food into blood and flesh and bones and sustaining the whole archetype, of the body. Each time the food body change from moment to moment according to many factors, especially on what we eat. The pranas, or our vital air sheaths, also change according to the ever-changing proportions of the gunas. So we are talking about that before. The gunas are going to influence our digestion, our circulation, and our excretion, every function we have, our blood pressure, everything that the gunas influence. And we know that the gunas are changing all the time. Therefore, our pranas, our vital air sheaths are also changing. So the food change from moment to moment because it depends on what I eat. So if I eat a lot of junk food, my body is going to change according to junk food. If I eat a lot of fresh, nutritious food, my body is going to change according to those nutritious food. If I don't eat, my body is going to change until it no longer sustains the subtle body. Okay? That's called the death of the body. Not to say about our thoughts, no, our mind. The mind changes, and sometimes the minds change so violent and unexpectedly. Okay, it's just changed. It's one thought may come, from nowhere. We know that it all comes from the causal body, our warehouse of our vasanas. So they provide thoughts. They are not deliberate thoughts. Okay. So the mind, which is nothing but our thoughts, okay? This constant bundle and flow of thoughts that keep changing to one and another unless we decide to exercise the power of deliberate thinking, that deliberately analyzing our experience, okay? So the thoughts, they happen like that. And sometimes they change drastically, unexpectedly, violently. They change according to the expression of our vasanas, okay, or our tendencies or our propensities. Okay, so we cannot say that the mind, is the self which does not change. Okay, the same goes to the intellect and its notion. So the notions of the intellect, our ideas, our values, they also keep changing. Right? In order to grow spiritually, to refine the mind, and so on, we have to change the intellect. We have to change all our value system. We have to analyze our experience, understand, getting a proper Vedic education, and then we're going to change our intellect, all those values and notions that we hold most important to us. So the intellect also is constantly changing. Okay, somebody may have some beliefs, Yeah, at a certain point, I have this example when I first came to Italy, when I married my wife, Sylvia. I came to Italy and I met her family, and I came to know her father. And her father, on those days, he was a communist, okay? And he was all into politics and communism and so on. And then down the road, 10, 20 years later on, he became a activist on La Lega. And nowadays he is totally into Berlusconi, okay, capitalism and so on. So what kind of intellect, what kind of notions or values, or, it changes. It's just changed according to many uncontrollable factors operating the field. Okay, so all of this is changing all the time. And the blissful states of mind, Steve, how about that? We all would like to be in a state of Anandamaya Koshan, resting in the bliss sheath and enjoying that peace, that love, that ecstasy, that satisfaction, that desireless state of peace and so on. But we know that if we try to attain that by the means of willpower, meaning to say yoga, we may have some good results, but the mind, in order to control the mind, you need an alliance between willpower and knowledge, understanding, so that the mind can be more easily controlled. And even when you control the mind to a certain extent, still, anything may happen. There is something playing in your field, some karma comes, and then when you see the mind still, again, modifies, and when you see the identification of your consciousness with a certain thought, emotion, feeling takes over, and then we get into this problem that Stephen was sharing with us at the beginning. So we cannot control this blissful state of the mind called Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss sheaths. None of this is totally under control, because all of that changes, and there is only one factor, which is a factor that's common to all of these levels of experience. There is one substratum, one fundamental principle, one fundamental factor, which is actionless, and that is the I, the real self. Okay? So we are trying to discriminate here the I, the self, from all these different layers of being, layers of experience, okay? From the food body to the Anandamaya Kosha, the bliss Kosha. So also, the sheaths depend on matter for their existence. So we have no question about that. We understood that below the line of Maya, everything there is matter, subtle matter and gross matter. So all the sheaths build, construct, they are assembled by the three energies and the 5 elements, okay? And we have therefore matter in its gross 5 formation, it's subtle and super subtle. Everything on those 5 different layers of beingness, of experience, okay? All of that depends on energy/matter. Energy, matter are the same thing, okay? So the sheaths depend on energy, matter for their existence. Matter, in turn, depends upon you, consciousness. As we know, consciousness is the only free, independent factor, okay? Everything depends on consciousness existence. Consciousness existence lends consciousness existence to everything below this line of Maya. All of that is inert matter, and it borrows conscious existence from consciousness, the self. So the self is what gives and provides this. Everything there is just matter. So matter in turn depends on consciousness, depends on you. Since this is the case, the five sheaths cannot be the you, the independently existent conscious self. Okay? The point is not to stop these mistaken thoughts slash apparent identifications. Okay? The point is not to stop these misapprehensions or these errors or mistaking thoughts that appear in our minds, from happening, because that would be impossible. But when they appear, they need to be recognized for what they are. They are projections, they are error, they are misunderstanding, they are tricks produced by Maya, where the self is being identified with the not self. The identification with the self, with the not self, is the very, very name of the game in Mithya. It's the self appearing as the jiva and identify with different layers of its human experience and say, I. And there is a lot of things attached to this I, and this is what it is. The self identified with the not self. It's impossible to stop those thoughts from popping up in our mind, those sensations and emotions, but by the means of knowledge, in due time, we can allow those thoughts, we can even respond according to those thoughts, but in the background, there is this clarity that I, the self, through this medium called the body, mind, and the five koshas, I respond to the field, I even interact to the field, they say, I, the body, I, the mind, and so on. But deep inside, I know that I am the self, and I'm the only free, independent principle, okay, pervading and enlivening the five koshas. So the point is not to stop these thoughts, these erroneous thoughts and emotions coming up, emerging in my conscious awareness from happening, because it's impossible to control. You can control by the means of Samadhi Yoga, but Samadhi Yoga does not solve the problem, because in Samadhi Yoga we cannot gain knowledge. So let's forget about Samadhi Yoga. But when they do appear, they need to be recognized for what they are. It's just a natural, universal ignorance that is all the time operating, and we have to play according to that, as a means to interact with the field. And then they need to be negated with discrimination. We see, wow, the I has identified with the not I, the self has been identified with the not self. Then immediately I negate with discrimination. Through continuous discrimination, the identification with the not self can be broken, and the identification with the true self can be established. Okay? So our sadhana as Vedantins is nothing but disidentify from the not self. I mean, we could say it begins with discriminating between the self and the not self, the real I from the apparent I, the real I or the real self from its experience. Okay, so we need to learn to establish this clear-cut discrimination between the subject, and object. This Satyamita discrimination has to be strong. But then life kicks in. And again, there is this apparent errors or misapprehension, misidentification, okay? And then our sadhana is to keep discriminating the self from this mistakenly identified I as the body-mind, as the five sheaths, okay? We discriminate the self from the not self, the self from the apparent self, number one sadhana, and then we identify, we disidentify with the not self, okay? We need to understand what's the self, what's the not self. That's what I'm trying to say. And then we have to work on disidentifying ourself from the not self or the appearance self, and then we need to work on establish our identification as the I, the pure self. Okay? Okay, now let's go a little bit more into the food sheaths. So what's the food sheaths? The gross body is composed solely of what we have been eating in the past. Therefore, it's called the food body, the food sheaths. By the way, if we stop the intake of food, the body shrinks and dies. We know that, we cover that. When we see an apple sitting on a table, this is nice. When we see an apple sitting on a table, we don't mistake ourselves the apple. We don't think, oh, I the apple, right? Are we following? So when we see an apple in the fridge, when we see an apple on the table, we don't get confused and say, oh, I the apple. We see now there is an apple, there is me, the I. But then when the I feels like, okay, I'm going to eat this apple, and then we eat the apple, and then what happened to the apple? The apple now is an integral part of my body, okay? And then I say, oh, that's not enough. Now I want to eat a nice sandwich, okay? I want to eat a cheese ham sandwich. So I get this cheese sandwich. I don't get confused. My identity is totally distinct from the sandwich. But then I eat the sandwich, and now the sandwich is integral part of this I as the body, because I believe that the food sheaths the body. Yeah. So when we see an apple sitting on the table, we do not mistake it to be myself. But as soon as I eat the apple, I integrate the apple in my body, and I start referring the apple as me, because the apple became integral part of my body. The sandwich became an integral part of my body. Now I say, this is all me. Okay, I am this composition of everything I eat. And you start referring to it as me, because the body is nothing but what we have eaten. In this sense, the apple, the rice, and the veggies I eat for lunch have all become my body, have all become me, the food sheaths. So if you find yourself identify with the food body, aside from applying the discriminations that I have learned already, contemplate on the fact that it's nothing more than a moving collection of processed food. Nowadays, we hear so much about processed food. Junk food is processed food. It's not fresh food. So we get all this food, these fresh foods, let's say, we process it, and then we turn it into flesh, into blood, into bones, and all the nutrients, all the chemicals that the body requires to grow or to maintain its functions and so on. So everything, the body nada mais é do que than this moving, ever-changing collection of processed food, processed fruits, vegetable, grains, meats. So you cannot be the food sheaths unless you can see yourself every time you open your refrigerator, or you open your pantry and look into its contents. This is very nice. If you say that I am the food body, and then if you really want to hold on to that affirmation, to that assertion, and then you have to really make a point and say, okay, if I am this food body, and then I am the food also outside of my body, therefore, every time I open my fridge, I see food, and I say, that's me, okay? I see myself in the fridge, I see myself in the bed, because I have the term that I am the food body, and there is fundamentally no difference between the food within my body and outside of my body. Are you guys following the logic?
Yeah, I understand it quite well.
Thank
having
you.
been obsessed with food.
Having been what?
Well, having been obsessed with food and health, and understanding how food can create a sattvic or a tasmic or rajasic
Right.
body. I've been contemplating this aspect for years.
Yeah. Food vasana is one of the most difficult. Sex and food is big to really, disidentify and look into them objectively. But this is an analysis who says like, okay, so don't believe that you are the food body the same way you do not believe that you are the food in the fridge or in your pantry. That's the logic. Identification with the food sheath is indicated by thoughts pertaining to the body, such as I am tall, I'm fat, I'm male, I'm female, I'm black, I'm white, I'm skinny, and so on. Every thought that associates with the I, with the food body, is an indication of the identification of the self with the food sheath. That's the logic. That's the idea here. Okay, let's go. We have some more time. Let's go into the vital air sheath. What is the vital air sheath? It's the 5 physiological functions of which the first 4 are respiration, excretion or evacuation, circulation, and assimilation of nutrients. So in our body, we have these 4 physiological functions, okay, that are going to to be responsible for our respiration, our circulation, our excretion, and our assimilation. There is a 5th physiological function, which is a power that reverses the other vital air function. What is this reversal? This reversal power is a power that allows us to not to throw out any unwanted object or unwanted food or element. Okay, so every time we throw up, there is a certain function there that somehow compels us, naturally to the muscles are going to work that way, and when we see we are just vomiting. Okay, so this is this 5th function of our physiological function. It's going to allow us to sneeze, to blanching, and to vomiting, and it also subjects the subtle body from the gross body at the time of death. That's also very important. It's this other function. Okay, here I don't see the Sanskrit name. It has a Sanskrit name. This, let me see what our chart says here.
Pranayama.
Huh?
Pranamaya kosha.
Yeah, the power to expel the subtle body from the physical body.
Oh, I don't know it. Sorry, but the sheath itself is pranamaya.
Yeah, no, that's the sheath. Yeah, no. Here in the chart, James left it all in English. It's called expulsion. So expulsion is the ability to throw out unwanted objects. Okay, so expulsion, excretion, respiration, circulation, and digestion. Those are the physiological, natural functions that operate in our body 24/7, and we don't need to do anything for it. Okay, it's just Ishvara working for us. Okay, and then Ishvara works for us as well through this power called expulsion. Expulsion, I guess. Yeah, expulsion. Yeah, expulsion. Expulsion. This power is the prana, is the vital air energy that pulls the subtle body from the physical body at the time of death. Okay.
May I just interject here? I don't know what I'm going to say here. I've been observing a lot of people kind of equate the beingness as energy body. And I can see here, it's the energy body here is in the second sheath. So a lot of people make a mistake. They feel that everything in the universe is energy. I guess it's because they have a limited understanding of the various sheaths. And as I say, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I feel like I hear so many people saying, oh, we're just the energy body. But the energy body itself has a beginning and an end. Therefore, it resides in the mithya, and it's only in a part reality.
Yeah.
I just try to reiterate principles of
Yeah, so it's true. In Nietzsche, everything is energy. Everything is energy, matter, or matter energy. Okay, subtle matter or gross matter. Gross matter becomes the physical matter that available to our sights, which only for our human beings. There are some other beings that have a different means or a different equipment or a medium that sees things different from us. But as human jiva, we have the eyes and we can see our physical body. We cannot really see our subtle body because it is matter, but it's more like subtle matter or energy. So the physical body is grossified energy. We could say that the subtle body is subtle gross matter. Okay, it depends on our instrument, perceptive instrument, and our ability to really see, feel, smell, and perceive these different fields of energy. So in the causal body is the super subtle, body, but it's all body, it's all matter / energy. So, but the self is not energy, right? And the confusion that a lot of people make is that they think that the self is a very subtle energy. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's Maya. Maya is the most subtle energy there is in the manifest, immediate. But the self is not energy. Okay? Energy matter is the same thing. The self is not energy, it's not matter.
So one of the arguments you could say, because energy has a beginning or end, or it's subject to modulation, right?
Yeah.
It's like has changeable. Therefore, it resides in nitya, the reality. And okay.
Yeah. So energy is phenomenal. Energy is an object. Okay. So anything that can be objectified, even if it's invisible, it's an object. The scientists, for example, they for a long time they were only interested in physical material matter until they discovered energy or subatomic particles, and then they became aware of energy. And then the whole of science is objectifying, trying to understand matter and energy. Okay, so energy and matter, they are objects. So they are objects, and the object depends on the conscious subject. Okay, the conscious subject ultimately is the self. Okay, the self. So it knows objectively, it knows scientifically, scientific knowledge, objective scientific knowledge. It knows through the minds of its jivas. Fundamentally, essentially, consciousness, is the knowing principle, the knowing, it's consciousness is another name for knowledge or knowingness. Okay? Consciousness and existence. Consciousness / knowledge. Sometimes we present consciousness as knowledge as well, but not objective knowledge, but the knowing principle, the conscious principle. Conscious existence principle is limitless. This is Sat Chitananda. That's the meaning of Sat Chitananda. Okay? So every object of knowledge, every object of experience depends on the subject knowing principle. Every object share something with the subject, what is the same fact the object shares with the subject? Every object shares existence. And by the way, the existence of all objects is landed by the self, the conscious existence, limitless self. Okay? Satchitananda. So Satchitananda lends existence to all objects of the universe. All the subtle, more more gross, more subtle, and super subtle. Everything is matter. Everything is energy, and they exist. And the existence was landed by consciousness, existence, limitless conscious existence. Okay, so it lends existence to the object. But what is the difference between the object and consciousness, existence itself? Is this object? They are inert. They are not self-conscious. They don't have light on its own. Okay, they depend on their existence, depends on consciousness alone.
Right.
They depend on consciousness. They are made out of consciousness, and they are revealed by consciousness, and they are known by consciousness. Okay, so consciousness is not matter, is not energy. Matter and energy is the subject of science. Science wants to objectify and understand consciousness, matter and energy. Okay, so the spirituality is the science of consciousness. It's the science of want to know the subject, conscious existence principle. It's a different science. The science itself, the science of consciousness. Okay, so the self is not an object of knowledge in the sense that the self is not matter, the self is not energy. And a lot of people think that the self is a super subtle energy somehow, which is a mistake. Okay, let's see if we finish these paragraphs here, and then we conclude the vital air. So additionally, the vital air sheath includes the 5 organs of actions. Oh, that's very interesting. You remember that the subtle body was subdivided as the vital air sheaths, the mind sheaths, and the intellect sheaths. All of that, it is the subtle body being present in a different manner. Okay, and now it says that additionally, the vital air sheaths includes the 5 organs of actions. It not only includes the 5 physiological functions, or the five vital airs, okay, but includes also the 5 organs of actions. Why? Because the 5 organs of actions, as we have seen in the previous class, they are distinct. No, they are different from the 5 instruments of action. The 5 instruments of actions, they belong to the food sheaths, the body, the gross body, our hands, our legs, and so on. All our 5 instruments of action belong to the physical body. But the 5 organs of actions, they belong to the subtle body. And in this analysis, it belongs to the vital air sheaths. It needs a lot of prana, it needs a lot of rajas, a lot of energy to move those 5 organs of actions, okay? It needs a lot of prana. So it belongs in this analysis to the vital air sheaths, okay?
It's 9 hours.
Okay, I'm almost there. This because These, I mean, they belong to the vital air sheath. This because the vital air sheaths are not separate from the subtle body. That's very nice to understand, because many times in the again. Many times in our classes of Vedanta, we see those charts, and we see the five vital air sheaths, koshas, or the five physiological functions. We see them here more or less in between the subtle body and the physical body, right? We see them here, and we don't ever really understand, where are they? Do they belong to the physical body? Because they are not really physical. They're invisible. We don't see those pranas. We don't see those rajas, those energies, you know. And it's and sometimes we say, well, they allocate in between. No, the five physiological systems, okay, the five pranas, the vital wares, they belong to the mind. They belong to the subtle body. Okay, it's important to understand that. Okay, when the subtle body leaves the physical body at the time of what we call death, it takes with itself the five physiological systems, it takes the five organs of action and the five perceptive organs as well. Everything goes. Everything that belongs to the mind goes with it. All the organs, perceptive and organs of action, the vital air, and the mind, the intellect, the ego, everything goes. That's we say the eternal jiva. They never go away. They stay forever. This is because the vital air sheaths are not separate from the subtle body. They do not belong to the gross body, and they are not in between the bodies like it shows in some of our charts. This is a small commentary that I keep adding some commentaries. Vital air sheaths is responsible for the health and proper functioning of the food sheaths, to say the body. So the vital air sheaths, you know, these pranas, okay, they are responsible for the health and proper functioning of the food body, of the physical body. I mean, we hear about these healers. There are healers that work this prana energy. The pranas, you know, it can activate all these physiological systems and bring the body to balance. And when you see the person start, you know, getting health again, there is a lot of this energy work, which is nothing but working on the prana level, okay, to bring about healthy, you know, to all these functions or balance or equilibrium to these functions of the physical body. So this vital air sheaths animates and enlivens the physical body. So we have no doubt about that. If we have ever seen somebody die, we see the person there is some prana going in and out of the body, and then there is the last prana. Once it leaves, and if it does not go back, it means that the body is going to lose its life. Okay? That which was enlivening the body is no longer enlivening. So these pranas, this vital air, they are what give life to the body. Of course, they belong to the mind, the subtle body. The subtle body is what vivifies and animates the gross body, the food body. Okay? Identification with the vital air sheath is indicated by such thoughts as I am sick, I am breathing, I am sneezing, I am sweating, I am digesting my food, I am having a congestion, I am defecating, I am urinating. When the I gets identified with any one of these physiological functions, the I is under the spell of Maya, okay? It got an error, a mistaken identification with one of its most common physiological, natural experience of day-to-day life. And again, the big I says, I, you know, I am this, I am that, I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm even sweating now. Oh my God, I'm sweating. So all these mistakes, they happen. And our purpose is to keep our mind clear, bring the mind back to the scriptures, understand how Maya deceives everybody and makes everybody identify with mistaken, uh, conclusions, that I am this, I am that, and so on. And then we can correct it. So the scriptures are going to allow us to correct our misapprehension of what is really going on, as we live our life. And that, having said, we stopped here and we begin from the mind sheaths next week, hoping that we're going to have a few more fanatics, not only the three of us.
Thanks, Arlindo.
Okie dokie.
Lindo.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vachishate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Stephen
you.
and Trudy. And I see you next week. Wish you are willing.
See you next week.
Okay, dokie.
Thank you so much.
Good week. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. 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 Bye.